Princess Lirelai entered this world during the worst possible time on planet Zephyria Prime. The twin moons had crossed paths, creating what her people called the Dark Season. Every person on the planet knew that children born during this time brought bad luck to their families. But Lirelai's birth brought something even worse than bad luck. She looked completely different from everyone else. On Zephyria Prime, all royal family members glowed with beautiful golden light. Their skin sparkled like warm honey, and their eyes shone bright yellow like tiny suns. This golden glow showed their royal blood and made them look powerful and magical to their people. When Queen Seraphina first held her newborn daughter, her heart nearly stopped. Instead of the expected golden glow, little Lirelai had pale silver skin that seemed to shimmer like moonlight. Even more shocking, her eyes kept changing colors, sometimes blue, sometimes green, sometimes purple, never staying the same for more than a few minutes. King Valdris took one look at his daughter and stepped backward in horror. The royal doctors rushed around the baby, checking her over and over again. They had never seen anything like this before. "Your Majesty," said the head doctor, his voice shaking, "the princess has what we call chromatic instability. Her body cannot maintain proper color control like other members of the royal family." The king's advisors gathered around him, whispering urgently. "This is a sign," one of them said. "The dark season has cursed the child. She will bring disaster to our kingdom." Queen Seraphina held her baby closer, tears rolling down her cheeks. She could feel how the tiny princess was different, but she also felt something else, a strange warmth and peace when she held her daughter. Still, she couldn't ignore the fear in everyone's eyes. "We must keep this secret," King Valdris declared. "No one outside the palace can know about her condition. We will figure out what to do later." As days turned into weeks, the situation only got worse. The other royal children, Lirelai's older brothers and sister, all glowed perfectly golden. When they walked through the palace halls, servants bowed low and smiled with genuine love and respect. But when they saw little Lirelai, even covered in blankets, people would quickly look away or make excuses to leave. The court's wisest advisor, an ancient woman named Counselor Thea, suggested they send the baby away. "Find a family in the outer territories," she said. "Tell them she died at birth. No one will ever know." Queen Seraphina refused. Despite all the pressure, she couldn't abandon her child. But she also couldn't protect her from the cold stares and whispered comments that followed them everywhere. So they made a compromise that broke the queen's heart. Princess Lirelai would live in the forgotten east wing of the palace, the section that had been abandoned for over 100 years. She would have everything she needed: food, clothes, education, but she would stay hidden from the court and the people. Only one person volunteered to care for the cursed princess. Kestra was an elderly servant who had worked in the palace for most of her life. She had helped raise the queen when she was young, and she couldn't bear to see any child treated so coldly. "I don't care about curses or prophecies," Kestra told the queen privately. "That little girl needs someone to love her, and I have plenty of love to give." Kestra moved into the east wing with baby Lirelai. She cleaned the dusty rooms, fixed the broken furniture, and created a warm, safe space for the princess to grow up. While the rest of the palace buzzed with activity and celebration, their corner remained quiet and peaceful. As Lirelai grew, from a baby into a curious toddler, her differences became even more obvious. Her skin would change from silver to pale blue when she was sad, or flash with tiny sparkles when she laughed. Her eyes shifted colors constantly, like looking into a kaleidoscope. Kestra taught her to wear special dark glasses to hide her changing eyes. "It's not because you're wrong, little star," Kestra would say gently. "It's because other people aren't ready to see how special you are." From her window in the east wing, Lirelai could see her brothers and sister playing in the royal gardens. She watched them receive visitors, attend grand dinners, and learn important skills like leadership and public speaking. Sometimes she would pretend she was down there with them, imagining what it would feel like to have people smile when they saw her instead of looking scared. The loneliest times were during royal celebrations, while music and laughter echoed. Through the palace, Lirelai would sit in her room, listening to the sounds of a family she could never truly join. Kestra would try to cheer her up with stories and games, but nothing could fill the empty space in the little girl's heart. When Lyra Lee turned 10, she discovered the abandoned library in her wing of the palace. Thousands of old books lined the walls, covered in dust but full of incredible stories. She spent hours reading about distant planets, brave heroes, and magical adventures. But the books that fascinated her most were the ancient prophecies and legends of her people. One day, she found a book that made her heart race with excitement. It told the story of the Silver Child, a legendary figure who would appear during dark times to bring peace between warring peoples. The Silver Child would have shifting colors and changing eyes, marks that showed their ability to understand all different kinds of beings. Kestra, Lyra Lee whispered that night, what if I'm not cursed? What if I'm the Silver Child from the prophecies? The old servant smiled sadly. Maybe you are, little star. But even if you are, the world isn't ready for you yet. Sometimes the most special people have to wait the longest for others to understand their worth. Lyra Lee kept reading about the Silver Child, learning that this person would have the power to absorb negative feelings from others and transform them into healing energy. She began to notice that when Kestra felt sad or worried, being near Lyra Lee seemed to make her feel better. When small animals got hurt in the gardens, they would calm down if Lyra Lee touched them gently, but she kept these observations secret. She had learned early in life that being different meant being rejected. If people knew she had strange powers on top of her strange appearance, they might send her away from the only home she had ever known. Years passed quietly in the East Wing. Lyra Lee grew into a thoughtful, intelligent young woman who spoke multiple languages, understood complex mathematics, and could discuss philosophy with the wisdom of someone much older. But none of these accomplishments mattered to her family or the court. They still saw only the cursed child who couldn't glow golden like a proper princess. Queen Seraphina would visit sometimes, always late at night when no one else was around. These visits filled Lyra Lee with both joy and sadness. She could see the love in her mother's eyes, but she could also see the fear and shame. The queen would hold her daughter's hands and tell her she was beautiful, but she would never say it, where anyone else could hear. "I'm sorry," the queen would whisper during these secret visits. "I'm so sorry I'm not brave enough to stand up for you." Lyra Lee would comfort her mother, even though her own heart was breaking. "It's okay, Mother. Maybe someday things will be different." But as her 18th birthday approached, Lyra Lee began to lose hope that anything would ever change. She would spend her whole life hidden away, watching from shadows while others lived in the light. She was a princess who would never rule, a daughter who brought shame instead of pride, a person whose greatest achievement was staying invisible. She had no idea that everything was about to change, and that soon she would meet someone who would see her differences not as flaws to hide, but as gifts that could change the entire galaxy. On the morning of Princess Lyra Lee's 18th birthday, everything changed in the worst possible way. Instead of a celebration, King Valdris called her to the throne room for the first time in her entire life. Lyra Lee walked through the golden halls wearing her dark glasses and a heavy cloak that covered most of her silver skin. Palace guards stared at her with curiosity and whisper among themselves. She had become like a ghost story to them, the hidden princess that everyone knew about but no one ever saw. The throne room was massive and intimidating, filled with golden light from her father's powerful glow. King Valdris sat on his crystal throne, looking stern and uncomfortable. Queen Seraphina stood beside him, her eyes red from crying. The royal advisors formed a circle around the throne, all watching Lyra Lee with expressions ranging from disgust to pity. "Lyra Lee," the king began, not even calling her by her princess title. "The Galactic Alliance has requested our help with a very important mission." Lyra Lee's heart began to race. After 18 years of isolation, why would they suddenly want her involved in galactic politics? Counselor Thea stepped forward with the official-looking document. "The Dominion Empire is threatening war against several peaceful planets. The Alliance needs a diplomatic representative from our royal family to negotiate a peace treaty with them." The princess felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this was her chance to finally prove her worth to her family and people. Maybe they were giving her an opportunity to show what she could do. But King Valdris's next words crushed that hope instantly. "This mission is extremely dangerous," he said coldly. "The Dominion Empire is known for being violent and unpredictable. They have destroyed diplomatic ships before. We don't expect whoever goes on this mission to return alive." The horrible truth hit Lorelei like a punch to the stomach. They weren't giving her this mission because they believed in her. They were sending her because they hoped she would disappear forever. If she died on this mission, they could tell everyone she died serving her people heroically. If she somehow survived, she would be far away from their planet and no longer their problem. Queen Seraphina stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. "Lorelei, you don't have to accept this mission. You could refuse." But they all knew she couldn't refuse. If she stayed on Zephyria Prime, she would spend the rest of her life hidden in the East Wing, forgotten and alone. At least this mission gave her a chance to see the galaxy and maybe find a place where she belonged. "I accept the mission," Lorelei said quietly, trying to keep her voice steady even though her heart was breaking. 3 days later, she found herself aboard the Star Whisper, an old cargo ship that had been converted for diplomatic travel. The bow ship was nothing like the beautiful royal vessels she had seen in pictures. Everything was worn and patched, clearly chosen because no one would miss it if it never came back. The crew consisted of 4 people, and none of them seemed happy about their assignment. Captain Thorne was a gruff man in his 50s who had clearly seen too many battles. He looked at Lorelei with barely hidden resentment. "So you're the reject, princess?" he said bluntly during their first meeting. "Great. I'm supposed to babysit royal family embarrassment while flying into enemy territory." Navigator Zara was a quiet woman who kept to herself and spoke only when necessary. Engineer Boric, a stocky man with mechanical arms, spent most of his time fixing the ship's constantly breaking systems. Communications officer Vel seemed nervous about everything and kept checking their emergency escape routes. For the first week of travel, Lorelei stayed in her tiny cabin, trying to stay out of everyone's way. She could hear the crew talking about her in the corridors, making jokes about the cursed princess and betting on how quickly the Dominion Empire would reject their diplomatic mission. But slowly things began to change. When Boric injured his hand while repairing the engine, Lorelei helped bandage the wound. When Zara got sick from bad food at a space station, Lorelei brought her medicine and sat with her until she felt better. When Vel panicked during a minor system malfunction, Lorelei's calm presence helped him focus and solve the problem. Captain Thorne noticed these small acts of kindness, and his attitude toward the princess began to soften slightly. "You're not what I expected," he admitted one evening as they shared dinner in the ship's small galley. "What did you expect?" Lorelei asked. "A spoiled brat who would complain about everything and demand special treatment," Thorne replied honestly. "Instead, you're the most helpful passenger I've ever had." Their first major stop was Kepler 442b, a medical station run by the Galactic Alliance. All diplomatic ships were required to stop there for health screenings before entering contested space. The station was a massive structure that looked like a spinning wheel, with medical facilities, research labs, and temporary housing for travelers. Lorelei had never seen so many different types of beings in one place. There were tall, blue-skinned Andromedans, furry creatures called Zephyrians from the Outer Rim, and dozens of other species she had only read about in books. Most interesting of all were the humans, bipedal beings from a planet called Earth, who had only recently joined the Galactic Alliance. The medical screening was conducted by Dr. Elena Vasquez, a human woman with kind brown eyes and gentle hands. Unlike everyone else Lorelei had met, Dr. Vasquez didn't seem afraid or disgusted by her appearance. When Lorelei removed her dark glasses for the eye examination, the doctor's face lit up with fascination rather than fear. "Remarkable," Dr. Vasquez whispered, watching Lorelei's eyes shift from blue to green to purple. "I've never seen anything like this. How do you feel when the colors change?" "Normal," Lorelei replied, surprised by the doctor's genuine interest. "I've always been this way." Dr. Vasquez ran several tests, checking Lorelei's blood pressure, heart rate, and brain activity. The results clearly puzzled her, but she seemed excited rather than concerned. "Your physiology is fascinating," the doctor explained. "Your body processes energy in ways I've never seen before. These color changes aren't random. They're responding to your emotional state and the energy around you." For the first time in her life, someone was treating Lyra Lay's differences as something wonderful, rather than something to hide. Dr. Vasquez asked intelligent questions about how her abilities worked and seemed genuinely impressed by the answers. "Where I come from," Dr. Vasquez said, "we believe that differences make us stronger, not weaker. Your unique traits could be incredible gifts if you learned to understand and control them." Lyra Lay felt a warmth in her chest that she had never experienced before. This human doctor saw potential in her instead of problems. For a few precious hours, she felt like she might actually be special in a good way. But their time together was cut short by an emergency alarm that echoed throughout the medical station. Red lights flashed, and an automated voice announced that hostile ships had been detected approaching the station. Through the observation windows, they could see dark military vessels emerging from hyperspace. These weren't Dominion Empire ships. They belonged to a separatist group that had been attacking Alliance facilities for months. "All non-essential personnel report to emergency shelters immediately," the station commander announced over the communication system. "This is not a drill." Chaos erupted throughout the station. People ran in every direction, trying to reach safety before the attack began. Dr. Vasquez grabbed Lyra Lay's hand and started leading her toward the nearest shelter. But something was wrong with Lyra Lay. The fear and panic of hundreds of beings on the station was affecting her in ways she had never experienced before. Her skin began to glow brighter, shifting rapidly between silver and blue. Her eyes changed colors so fast they looked like spinning rainbows. "I can't control it," she gasped, doubling over in pain as energy coursed through her body. The separatist ships opened fire and the station shook violently. Emergency lights flickered and the air filled with the sounds of explosions and screaming. The overwhelming emotions of terror and desperation from everyone around her were more than Lyra Lay could handle. Suddenly, her body released all the energy it had been absorbing. A brilliant flash of light erupted from her, so bright that it could be seen through the station's thick walls. The light lasted only a few seconds, but it was enough to temporarily blind the attacking pilots and disrupt their targeting systems. The attack stopped as the confused pilots tried to figure out what had happened. In those precious moments of confusion, the station's defenses came online and began fighting back. But the effort had been too much for Lyra Lay. She collapsed onto the floor, her body completely drained of energy. Dr. Vasquez knelt beside her, checking her pulse and breathing. "She's alive, but barely," she told Captain Thorne, who had come running when he saw the flash of light. "We need to get her to a proper medical facility," the doctor continued. "Her body has gone into some kind of energy shock. I don't know how to treat this." As evacuation ships arrived to take people away from the damaged station, Dr. Vasquez faced a critical decision. She could evacuate with the others and let someone else deal with the unconscious princess, or she could stay and try to save the life of someone she had just met. Looking down at Lyra Lay's pale, still form, Dr. Vasquez made her choice. Dr. Elena Vasquez had seen many medical emergencies during her 10 years as a trauma surgeon, but nothing had prepared her for this. Princess Lyra Lay lay unconscious on a makeshift medical bed in the station's emergency shelter, her silver skin flickering between different shades like a broken light bulb. The evacuation ships had left hours ago, taking most of the station's staff to safety. Only Elena, Captain Thorne, and a few essential personnel remained behind. The station's main medical facility had been damaged in the attack, leaving Elena with just basic supplies and portable equipment. "Her vital signs keep changing every few minutes," Elena muttered to herself, checking the monitors for the 10th time in an hour. Heart rate jumps from 50 to 150, then back down again. Blood pressure is all over the place. It's like her body can't decide what's normal. Captain Thorne paced nervously nearby. Despite his earlier complaints about the princess, he had grown to respect her during their journey. "Can you help her or not, Doc?" "I don't know," Elena admitted honestly. "I've never seen anything like this before. Her entire physiology is different from any species in my medical training. Elena tried every standard treatment she knew. She gave Lyrelay fluids to prevent dehydration, monitored her brain activity, and used energy stabilizers designed for other alien species. Nothing worked. If anything, the princess seemed to be getting worse. "Look at this," Elena said, pointing to the brain scan results. "Her neural activity is off the charts. It's like her mind is processing information at 10 times the normal rate. But her body can't keep up." As the hours passed, Elena began to notice patterns in Lyrelay's condition. When the princess was completely alone and quiet, her vital signs would stabilize slightly. But whenever someone approached her bed, even if they were trying to help, her energy readings would spike dramatically. "She's absorbing something from us," Elena realized suddenly. "Every time we get close to her, she's taking in our emotions and energy, but she doesn't know how to process it properly." Elena decided to try an experiment. She asked everyone else to leave the medical area and sat down far away from Lyrelay's bed. Slowly, she began thinking about calm, peaceful things: quiet beaches, gentle rain, sleeping cats. Within minutes, Lyrelay's vital signs began to improve. "Incredible," Elena whispered. "She's not just absorbing random energy. She's specifically taking in emotional energy from other people." This discovery was both exciting and terrifying. If Lyrelay could absorb emotions, that meant she had been dealing with everyone else's feelings her entire life without knowing. No wonder she had been so affected by the panic during the attack. Elena spent the next several hours testing her theory. When she focused on happy memories, Lyrelay's skin would glow a warm silver. When Elena accidentally thought about something sad, the princess's color would shift to a pale blue. It was like having a direct connection to another person's emotional state. But there was a serious problem. Lyrelay wasn't just absorbing emotions, she was storing them in her body like a battery. All the fear, anger, and pain from the hundreds of people during the attack were still trapped inside her, creating a dangerous overload. "I need to find a way to help her release this energy safely," Elena told herself. "If she keeps absorbing emotions without letting them go, it could kill her." Elena tried everything she could think of. She played calming music, used aromatherapy, and even tried meditation techniques she had learned during medical school. Some methods helped a little, but none of them solved the core problem. Meanwhile, Captain Thorne brought disturbing news from the communication center. "The separatist attacks are getting worse," he reported. "They've hit 3 more stations in the past day. Command wants us to abandon this place and head to safety." "I can't move her yet," Elena replied firmly. "She's still too unstable. The stress of space travel could make her condition worse." "Then we're all stuck here until she gets better," Thorne said grimly. "Those separatists could come back at any time." Elena felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on her. Not only was she trying to save Lyrelay's life, but she was also putting other people at risk by refusing to evacuate. Every decision she made could have serious consequences. During the second night, something unexpected happened. Elena had fallen asleep in her chair beside Lyrelay's bed, exhausted from nearly 40 hours of continuous work. She was having a nightmare about losing patients during emergency surgeries when she suddenly woke up feeling strangely peaceful. Lyrelay was awake, looking at her with those remarkable color-changing eyes. "Thank you," the princess whispered, her voice weak but clear. "I could feel your dreams. You were scared, but now you feel better. I think I took some of your fear away." Elena sat up quickly, checking the monitors. Lyrelay's vital signs were more stable than they had been since the attack. "How do you feel?" "Different," Lyrelay replied slowly. "Like I'm carrying less weight than before. But I'm also carrying some of your memories now. I saw flashes of your life, growing up on Earth, medical school, your first surgery. This was both fascinating and concerning. Not only could Lyrelay absorb emotions, but she was also somehow accessing memories connected to those feelings. Elena realized she was dealing with abilities far beyond anything science had documented. "Lyrelay, I need to ask you something important," Elena said gently. Has this happened to you before? Taking on other people's emotions? The princess nodded weakly. My whole life, but I never understood what was happening. When Kestra felt sad, I would feel sad too. When the palace guards were angry, I would get angry. I thought everyone experienced emotions that way. Elena's heart ached for this young woman who had spent 18 years unknowingly carrying the emotional burdens of everyone around her. No wonder her family had found her difficult to be around. She had been reflecting their own fears and negative feelings back at them. Your family rejected you because they were afraid, Elena explained carefully. But you were absorbing that fear and reflecting it back to them, making the fear stronger. It became a cycle that kept getting worse. So it really is my fault, Lirelei said sadly, tears rolling down her silver cheeks. No, Elena said firmly. It's not your fault at all. You have a gift that no one understood, including yourself. But gifts can be dangerous if you don't know how to use them properly. Elena made a decision that would change both of their lives forever. Instead of reporting her discoveries to the Galactic Medical Council, which would likely want to study Lirelei like a lab experiment, she decided to help the princess learn to control her abilities privately. I want to teach you how to manage your gift, Elena offered. It won't be easy and it might be dangerous, but I think you could learn to help people instead of just absorbing their pain. Lirelei's eyes shifted to a hopeful green color. You really think I could help people? I think you could change the galaxy, Elena replied honestly. But first we need to make sure you don't accidentally hurt yourself or others. Over the next 3 days, while they waited for the station to be deemed safe for evacuation, Elena began working with Lirelei on understanding her abilities. They discovered that the princess could not only absorb negative emotions, but also transform them into something positive. When Elena deliberately thought about a patient she had lost, Lirelei absorbed the guilt and sadness. But instead of just storing those feelings, she somehow processed them and sent back a sense of peace and acceptance. Elena felt better than she had in years about that particular loss. It's like you're an emotional recycling system, Elena marveled. You take in pain and transform it into healing. But they also discovered the dangers of Lirelei's gift. When she tried to absorb too much emotion at once, her body would overload, just like during the attack. When she tried to transform very intense feelings like rage or terror, the process would drain her energy completely. You need to learn your limits, Elena warned. This ability could save lives, but it could also kill you if you're not careful. As evacuation ships finally arrived to take them to safety, Elena faced another difficult decision. Should she document everything she had learned about Lirelei's abilities? Should she report to her medical superiors about this incredible discovery? Looking at Lirelei, who was finally stable and beginning to understand her own gift, Elena made her choice. Some discoveries were too important and too dangerous to share with the wrong people. For now, this would remain their secret. Are you ready to continue your diplomatic mission? Elena asked as they prepared to board the evacuation ship. Lirelei nodded, her eyes now a determined silver blue. I think I understand now why the ancient prophecies called someone like me the Silver Child. Maybe I really can bring peace between different peoples. Elena smiled, knowing that their journey together was just beginning. Then let's go change the galaxy. For weeks after leaving the medical station, Princess Lirelei and Dr. Elena had developed a secret routine that none of the crew knew about. Every night, when everyone else was asleep, they would meet in the ship's small cargo bay for training sessions. Elena had set up a makeshift laboratory using medical equipment she had quietly borrowed from various stations during their journey. She monitored Lirelei's vital signs while the princess practiced controlling her emotional absorption abilities. Remember what we learned yesterday, Elena whispered as she attached monitoring sensors to Lirelei's arms. Start small, don't try to absorb everything at once. Lirelei nodded, closing her eyes and focusing on Elena's emotions. The doctor was thinking about a minor frustration from earlier that day, when Navigator Zara had questioned their course route. As Lirelei absorbed the small amount of irritation, Her skin shifted from silver to a pale yellow color. Good, Elena said, watching the energy readings on her scanner. Now transform it. Lyrelei took a deep breath and processed the frustration through her system. Within moments, she sent back a feeling of understanding and patience. Elena felt her annoyance disappear completely, replaced by a calm acceptance of Zara's concerns. That was perfect, Elena smiled. Your control is getting much better, but their training sessions weren't without danger. 3 nights earlier, Lyrelei had tried to absorb too much emotion at once and nearly passed out again. Elena had to use emergency medical procedures to stabilize her while keeping everything secret from the crew. We need to be more careful, Elena had warned. If Captain Thorne finds out what we're doing, he might report it to the Alliance authorities. They could take you away for scientific study. During the day, they maintained normal appearances. Lyrelei wore her dark glasses and stayed quiet during meals, while Elena focused on her regular medical duties for the crew. But both women could feel their friendship growing stronger with each passing day. Elena shared stories about growing up on Earth, where humans had fought terrible wars before learning to work together. My grandmother used to tell me about the old days when different countries couldn't get along, Elena explained. Millions of people died because they were afraid of anyone who was different from them. Lyrelei talked about her lonely childhood and her dreams of finding a place where she belonged. Sometimes I wonder if I would have been happier if I had been born as a normal golden princess, she admitted. Don't say that, Elena replied firmly. The galaxy doesn't need another normal. Princess, it needs someone special who can do what you can do. Their destination was the neutral space station Deep Haven, where the peace negotiations with the Dominion Empire were supposed to take place. As they got closer, everyone on the ship became more nervous about the mission. The Dominion Empire has never agreed to peace talks before, Captain Thorne explained during a crew meeting. They solve all their problems through force and intimidation. I don't know why they agreed to meet with us now. Communications Officer Vel had been monitoring Dominion military broadcasts for weeks. Their ships are designed for war, not diplomacy, he reported. They have enough firepower to destroy entire planets. When the Star Whisper finally arrived at Deep Haven, Lyrelei got her first look at Dominion representatives through the station's observation windows. They were tall, muscular beings with dark gray skin and intense red eyes. Everything about them radiated aggression and barely controlled violence. They looked like they'd rather fight than talk, Elena observed quietly. The first day of negotiations was a complete disaster. Lyrelei sat at the diplomatic table wearing formal robes and her dark glasses, trying to present herself as a proper royal representative. But the Dominion leaders, led by a fierce warrior named General Cronus, showed nothing but contempt for her. This is what Zephyria Prime sends us? General Cronus laughed mockingly. A weak little princess who hides behind dark glasses, People must think very little of these peace talks. Lyrelei tried to use traditional Zephyrian diplomatic language, speaking about mutual benefits and shared prosperity. But every word seemed to make the Dominion representatives more angry and aggressive. Your royal family's golden glow is supposed to show power and authority, another Dominion officer sneered. But you don't glow at all. How can we take you seriously when your own people obviously consider you defective? The negotiations ended abruptly when General Cronus stood up and announced that the Dominion Empire had no interest in making peace with weak civilizations. We'll contact you when we're ready to discuss your surrender terms, he said coldly before walking out. That night, Elena found Lyrelei crying in her quarters. I'm a complete failure, the princess sobbed. They're right. I am defective. My own family sent me here hoping I would fail, and I did exactly what they expected. You're not a failure, Elena said, sitting beside her friend. You just tried to be something you're not. Maybe it's time to stop hiding who you really are. Elena had been thinking about this for days. All of Lyrelei's training had focused on controlling her abilities, but what if the solution was to use them openly instead of concealing them? What if we tried a different approach? Elena suggested. What if, instead of pretending to be a normal diplomat, you showed them what you can really do? Lyrelay looked terrified. If I reveal my abilities, everyone will know about them. The secret will be out forever. Maybe that's not such a bad thing, Elena replied. Your gift could be exactly what's needed to end this conflict. But it's your choice. I'll support whatever you decide. The next morning brought terrible news. During the night, the Dominion Empire had launched what they called a demonstration attack on a civilian mining station near the border. Hundreds of innocent people were trapped inside, and the station's life support systems were failing. The attack was being broadcast live across the galaxy as a warning to anyone who opposed the Dominion Empire. On the viewing screens, they could see panicked families running through damaged corridors, children crying for their parents, and rescue workers desperately trying to evacuate people. Lyrelay watched the footage with growing horror. She could almost feel the terror and desperation of everyone on that station, even though they were millions of miles away. Her skin began to shift colors rapidly as her emotional absorption abilities reacted to the broadcast. I can feel their fear, she whispered to Elena. It's so strong, even from this distance. Elena monitored Lyrelay's vital signs as the princess's abilities activated involuntarily. But something different was happening this time. Instead of becoming overloaded by the negative emotions, Lyrelay seemed to be processing them more efficiently than ever before. Your body is learning to handle stronger emotional input, Elena observed. It's like you're developing immunity through exposure. Suddenly, something remarkable happened. As Lyrelay absorbed the fear and panic from the distant station, her body began transforming those emotions into something else. The monitoring equipment showed energy patterns that Elena had never seen before. Through the broadcast, they could see people on the mining station beginning to calm down. Children stopped crying and started helping adults. Rescue workers became more organized and efficient. The overwhelming panic was being replaced by courage and hope. You're doing that, Elena breathed in amazement. Somehow your abilities are reaching across space and helping those people. Lyrelay opened her eyes, which were now glowing with a steady silver light. I can feel them getting stronger. Their fear is turning into determination. General Cronus and his officers, who had been watching the attack footage with satisfaction, suddenly looked confused and angry. Their demonstration wasn't having the intended effect. Instead of spreading terror, it was somehow inspiring people to work together and resist. This is impossible, General Cronus growled. Fear is supposed to make people weak and obedient. Why are they fighting back harder than before? Elena looked at Lyrelay with growing excitement. I think we just found the key to ending this war. Your gift isn't just about absorbing emotions from people nearby. You can affect anyone who's experiencing strong feelings anywhere in the galaxy. Lyrelay stood up slowly, her entire body now glowing with soft silver light. For the first time in her life, she wasn't trying to hide her differences or make herself smaller. She was embracing exactly who she was meant to be. I'm ready to try a different kind of diplomacy, she announced. One that doesn't depend on words or threats, but on showing people that there's a better way to feel. Elena smiled proudly at her friend. Then let's go change the galaxy, one heart at a time. The morning of the final peace talks arrived with terrible news. General Cronus was furious about the failed demonstration attack and had decided to end all negotiations permanently. But instead of simply leaving Deep Haven Station, he planned something much worse. Intelligence reports show Dominion warships surrounding the station, Captain Thorne announced grimly during an emergency crew meeting. They're not here to talk anymore. They're here to make an example of everyone who supported these peace talks. Through the station's observation windows, they could see the massive Dominion fleet taking attack positions. Each ship bristled, with weapons capable of destroying the entire station within minutes. There were over 3,000 people aboard Deep Haven, including diplomats, medical staff, traders, and families. All civilian ships are being ordered to evacuate immediately, Communications Officer Vell reported, his voice shaking with fear. But the Dominion ships are blocking all escape routes. They want everyone to watch what happens to people who oppose them. Elena found Lyrelay standing alone in the diplomatic quarters, staring out at the approaching warships. The princess had removed her dark glasses, and her color-changing eyes reflected the lights of the enemy fleet. Her silver skin was glowing softly, responding to the intense emotions filling the station. "I can feel everyone's terror," Lyrelay said quietly. 3,000 people, all afraid they're about to die. Children crying for their parents. Adults trying to be brave but feeling helpless inside. Elena checked her medical scanner and saw readings she had never witnessed before. Lyrelay's body was processing emotional energy at levels that should have been impossible. But instead of becoming overloaded like in previous emergencies, she seemed to be growing stronger. "Your abilities have evolved," Elena observed with amazement. "All our training sessions, all the practice with smaller emotions, they've been preparing you for something like this." General Cronus appeared on all the station's communication screens, his red eyes blazing with anger. "People of Deep Haven Station," he announced in a voice that echoed through every corridor, "you have witnessed the failure of peaceful diplomacy. Your princess cannot save you. Your alliance cannot protect you. In 1 hour, we will demonstrate what happens to those who resist the Dominion Empire." The station erupted into chaos. People ran through the corridors, desperately searching for escape pods that didn't exist. Security guards tried to maintain order while dealing with their own fear. Parents held their children close, not knowing how to explain what was happening. Lyrelay closed her eyes and let herself feel everything. For 18 years, she had tried to block out other people's emotions because they were too overwhelming. But now, with Elena's support and her own growing understanding, she opened her heart completely to everyone's feelings. The fear came first. Waves of terror from thousands of people who thought they were about to die. Then came the anger, frustration at being trapped with no way to fight back. Finally came the sadness, grief for dreams that would never be fulfilled, and loved ones who would never be seen again. "It's too much," Elena worried, watching Lyrelay's vital signs spike to dangerous levels. "You're taking on the emotions of the entire station. Your body can't handle that much input." But Lyrelay had made her decision. "If I'm going to die today, I want to die as myself. No more hiding. No more pretending to be something I'm not." She reached up and pulled off the heavy cloak that had hidden her silver skin. For the first time since leaving her home planet, she stood revealed as she truly was. A being of shifting light and color, whose very existence challenged everything people thought they knew about royalty and power. "Elena," Lyrelay said, her voice calm despite the chaos around them, "I need you to trust me completely. What I'm about to do has never been attempted before." Elena nodded without hesitation. "I trust you with my life." Lyrelay walked to the center of the diplomatic hall and sat down on the floor in a meditation position. She removed all the dampening devices that had been limiting her abilities and opened her mind to every single person on the station. The emotional energy hit her like a tidal wave. Fear, anger, despair, and hopelessness from 3,000 people flowed into her body all at once. Her skin began to glow so brightly that people throughout the station could see the light through walls and floors. Elena watched the medical readings in terror and wonder. Lyrelay's heart rate had increased to levels that should have killed her, but somehow her body was adapting to handle the massive energy input. Her brain activity showed patterns unlike anything in medical literature. Then something incredible began to happen. Instead of being destroyed by the overwhelming emotions, Lyrelay started transforming them. The fear flowing into her was being processed and converted into courage. The anger was becoming determination. The despair was transforming into hope. People throughout the station suddenly felt their panic beginning to fade. Children stopped crying and started comforting their parents. Security guards stood straighter and began organizing proper evacuation procedures. Diplomats who had been arguing about blame started working together to find solutions. But Lyrelay wasn't finished. The light emanating from her body grew even brighter, extending beyond the station and reaching toward the Dominion fleet itself. General Cronus was on the bridge of his flagship, preparing to give the order to attack, when something strange happened. For the first time in 20 years of military service, he felt peaceful. The constant anger that had driven his entire career began to fade, replaced by a deep sadness for all the suffering he had caused. Other Dominion soldiers throughout the fleet experienced similar transformations. The rage and aggression that had been beaten into them through years of military conditioning started melting away. Underneath, they found emotions they had forgotten they possessed: loneliness, fear, and a desperate desire for the wars to finally end. "Sir," one of Cronus's officers said hesitantly, "I don't think I want to fire on those people anymore. They're not our enemies. They're just people." Similar conversations were happening on every Dominion ship. Soldiers who had spent their lives following orders without question were suddenly asking themselves why they were fighting and whether there might be a better way to live. Elena watched in amazement as Lyrale's abilities reached impossible distances, touching the hearts of beings she had never met and transforming centuries of hatred into understanding. The princess was glowing so brightly now that she looked like a small star sitting in the diplomatic hall. "The ancient prophecies were right," Elena whispered. "She really is the silver child who will bring peace between species." On his flagship, General Cronus was struggling with emotions he hadn't felt since childhood. The silver light emanating from the station was somehow showing him memories of his own youth, before war had made him hard and cruel. He remembered wanting to be a teacher, not a soldier. He remembered believing that people could be good too, each other. "Stand down all weapons," he ordered quietly. "Sir?" his weapons officer asked in confusion. "I said stand down all weapons," Cronus repeated, louder this time. "We're not attacking anyone today." Throughout the Dominion fleet, weapon systems powered down as confused but relieved soldiers followed their general's unexpected orders. Many of them didn't understand why they had suddenly lost the desire to fight, but they were grateful for the feeling of peace that had replaced their constant anger. On Deep Haven Station, the impossible was happening. Instead of preparing for death, 3,000 people were experiencing hope, understanding, and genuine compassion for their former enemies. Diplomats who had been ready to give up on peace talks were now eager to find ways to end the conflict permanently. But the effort was taking everything Lyrale had. Elena could see her friend's strength fading as she poured her life energy into healing the emotional wounds of thousands of people across multiple starships. "Lyrale, you need to stop," Elena pleaded. "You're going to burn yourself out completely." The princess opened her color-shifting eyes and smiled. "It's okay, Elena. This is what I was meant to do. This is why I was born different." Just as Elena feared Lyrale might collapse from exhaustion, something wonderful happened. The people on the station who had been healed by her gift began sending energy back to her. Their gratitude, hope, and newly discovered peace flowed into Lyrale, giving her strength to continue. Even some of the Dominion soldiers, feeling genuine emotion for the first time in years, instinctively sent their own positive feelings toward the source of their healing. Lyrale's abilities had created a connection between thousands of beings who had never met, but were now linked by shared understanding and compassion. General Cronus himself appeared on the communication screens again, but this time his expression was completely different. The anger and cruelty were gone, replaced by something that looked almost like wonder. "People of Deep Haven Station," he said slowly, I apologize. I don't know what just happened to me, to all of us, but I feel like I've been asleep for 20 years and just woken up. The Dominion fleet is withdrawing. We want to discuss real peace, not conquest." As the immediate crisis ended, Elena helped, an exhausted but triumphant Lyrale to her feet. The princess was still glowing softly, but